Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the 2015 CEOs for Cities Cluster Workshop in the great city of Pittsburgh. And you can give a round of applause now, because you will many times, for our great Pittsburgh hosts in this great city. Please do. In a few minutes, you'll be hearing from the mayor of this great city, and you'll be hearing some great things about him. But before we do that, we want to do some introduction, a little of what's going to happen today. And we're going to show you a little video about CEOs for Cities. Some of you have already seen it, but you can never see it too many times. And we don't have the budget to do a new one every year, so you must see it every year. Okay, so with that, here is the video about CEOs for Cities.
I think education is sort of the builder of everything else we want to accomplish.
So that innovation and risk-taking can really flourish.
Let's help Americans improve their access to the best jobs available.
The city should measure success based on the quality of life. Those are the things that I would look at.
A lot of international cities are starting to think about happiness.
This tangible way of increasing and speeding economic development.
The people that live in the suburbs are finally catching on to the fact that you can't be a suburb of nothing.
Making it easy for city residents to connect with and support and champion and lend to small businesses and entrepreneurs.
It's human capital. Skills are really the bedrock on which both urban economic success and the strength of America's future rests.
Embark on green projects, that all of that really thrives in a situation of density.
It's things like economic growth, talent attraction, and building on the assets that cities have.
Mayors and city developers are really starting to understand how they can leverage social media.
The energy and enthusiasm around a really cohesive way to revitalize the city.
It's really a meeting ground. It's the big table where everyone can come together.
Some of the work that CEOs for Cities has done around quantifying the dividends couldn't be more important.
And allow people to come together and bring groups of people together.
Opportunity. Cities exist to provide opportunity.
Talent attraction and retention, and that's what we aim to help mayors accomplish. Focused on growing that city and making it a wonderful place to live and work.
So, we're going to be hearing from Mayor Peduto in a few minutes. He'll be introduced by the Mayor of Dayton, Nan Whaley. Then we're going to hear, basically, to frame the entire conference, what is innovative and inclusive growth, and you'll hear from those people listed there. Next, we'll go to a break from 10 to 10:30, and then we'll bring in our expert resources. These are people who have come in from around the country, who know a lot about, the subject of inclusive economic growth. I should mention that a lot of you do too. So this is not to suggest that many of you aren't expert resources as well, and that's why these conversations will be so great, because there'll be more than one expert at a table. We'll also, after that, have our lunch and keynote speaker. Grant Oliphant, the president of the Heinz Endowments, is here today. They are the lead sponsor of this event, and I'd like you to give a special thanks to Grant. He's right here. Grant Oliphant, Heinz Endowments. Without him, we'd be having this event today on a street corner. Peter Sims will be here, and we'll introduce him actually during the course of the morning. He's going to come and listen to some of the events. Then we'll go on 5 field trips. Now, for those of you who have your name badges, you may not have seen this yet, but in addition to your pocket agenda, which was in it when you registered, on the back of your name tag, if you signed up for a field trip, your field trip number is there. If it's blank, it's because either you didn't sign up for a trip or we made a mistake. Either way, during the break, sign up for a field trip if your field trip number is not there. It's not too late to sign up for a field trip, and we hope that all of you will go on one of the 5 field trips today. You'll also see on the back the phone numbers of Melissa and Brittany and me if you have any emergencies. please call Melissa and Brittany first. Then we have an evening reception from 6 to 7, co-hosted by the same group that co-hosted last night's reception, the Create Festival. It just so happens that there's another event going on simultaneously here in Pittsburgh called the Create Festival, which talks about the intersection of arts and technology, and we've partnered with them on these two receptions, last night and tonight. Tonight it'll be at the Wyndham Hotel, which is right by the Three River Arts Festival. So for those of you who didn't get a chance to see the Three River Arts Festival, you'll be able to go to it right after that reception. They're also going to have a lot of exhibits on arts and technology, which you can visit during or after the reception. And of course, you also have dinner on your own from 7 to 9. At 9 o'clock, as many of our expert resources as we can round up will be in Bill's Bar, so that you can meet them over drinks and conversation. And there's at least one cluster that I know will be in Bill's Bar tonight, and that's the Cleveland cluster, because tonight is the 4th game of the NBA Finals, and because we do not have an Oakland or San Francisco cluster, all of you are Cleveland fans tonight, even the Pittsburgh delegation, especially the Pittsburgh delegation, because this is not football. Okay, no argument. At any rate, we're going to have big screen TVs showing the Cleveland Cavaliers, a game against the Golden Warriors at 9 p.m. Pre-game starts at 8 if you want to get there early. Okay, then we go to our second and final day, tomorrow. We'll begin with Tony Griffin. Some of you heard Tony before. She's a phenomenal speaker, knows this subject inside and out, and she'll be provocative. Then we'll have a lightning round, something we've done at all of our conferences that is popular. We'll have 4 lightning round speakers, and then there'll be time for questions. Lightning round means they speak for 6 to 7 minutes so that we can hold your attention. Then we have a break, and then we go to some more breakout sessions. The first led by our expert resources, the second led by our cluster leaders with their own clusters. Then we have report outs, and then we end the day with a closing remarks by Mayor Peduto and a closing panel of some of our expert resources. Now I want to introduce Bob Milbourne. Bob, are you here? Okay, Bob, come up here quick. Bob is the chair of our board, and I've asked him to say a few words of welcome on behalf of our board. You know that we were founded in 2001 by Mayor Richard Daley and by Paul Grogan, the CEO of the Boston Foundation. And we have a terrific national board from all over the country. Bob Milbourne has never missed a meeting in the time he's been on the board, and drew the short straw and is the chair of the board. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Milbourne.
Well, thank you, Lee, and I don't want to keep you from what I think will be a terrific workshop, and it's so great to see so many cities represented here from everywhere on the map. So I just want to welcome you. It's always great to be at a CEOs for Cities meeting. I remember going to my first one in, I don't know, 1990 or something like that, when I lived in Milwaukee, and there's a great delegation from my hometown in Columbus, Ohio. They're here, and all of you are here, so let's get started. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be hearing from Lee Halverson in a few minutes, maybe later in the program, because right now she's greeting the mayor. Oh, here's Lee. Lee, come up here right now. Lee Halverson is the chair of the Pittsburgh Steering Committee for this entire workshop. Lee has done a phenomenal job along with Andrew Butcher, Tracy Serto, Bill Generette, our friends from Visit Pittsburgh. But Lee is the one who has led that effort. She's recently transitioned from the mayor's office to Grant Oliphant's office, and she still works for both, apparently, because she's also greeting the mayor just now. So, Lee Halverson.
Thank you, Lee. Other Lee. Fish, actually, I think is what we're officially supposed to call you. Good morning. On behalf of the Heinz Endowments and on behalf of the Mayor's Office and the Pittsburgh Cluster, we are so happy to have you here. Welcome. For those of you who are new to Pittsburgh, a special welcome. This is a really exciting time to be in Pittsburgh, and so we're happy to host you. I hope you're taking the opportunity to see all of the great things that Pittsburgh has to offer, the Heinz History Center being one of them. We are in a great space here, and please take the time to look around, because this is one of our nation's greatest museums. That's right, I said it. We also have the Arts Festival here this week and the Pirates game, and apparently you all brought the beautiful weather, so thank you. We're really pleased to have CEOs for Cities here, and a big thank you to Lee and your team. It's just excellent to have you in town. It's an amazing partnership that we have here, and it's really exciting to have once a bunch of doers in one room. It's exciting. If you look around the city and around the nation as to where things are actually happening, it's not DC, it's not in Congress, it's rarely in state capitals. It's here in this room with great mayors and good civic leaders who are pushing for change across the nation. So we're really, really happy to have you here. I know there's a lot of representatives from cities all over the country here today, and in many respects we're all fighting the same fight, struggling with a lot of the same struggles, so this is the place to have those conversations. If there's one piece of advice I can give you, if you look around Pittsburgh and wonder how we got here, I would say elect a really good mayor. We have two really good mayors coming up next, and there is really no replacement for good, strong, progressive leadership in a city like Pittsburgh. So it's my pleasure to be here, and thank you all. Please enjoy the next 2 days. We have a lot of exciting things for you, so thank you.
A couple other maintenance items, and then we're going to be getting to our Mayor Peduto and another mayor who will introduce him. For those of you who are in clusters who would like to have your photo taken today or tomorrow, we encourage you to do it tomorrow during your cluster sessions, but if you have some cluster members who are leaving early, just go up to one of our team that I introduced. They all have cameras with them called iPhones, and they will take a cluster picture at your request. Otherwise, we'll do most of them tomorrow. The names on the easels up here are of our expert resources. They've each been assigned a table, and if you're an expert resource and you're wondering where your table is, we'll help you during the break between, I think, 10 and 10:30 to find your table, so don't worry about that. Just a few words about more about CEOs for Cities, and I think Lee Halverson couldn't have said it better, that at a time when Washington is at its height of dysfunction and hyperpartisanship, and state capitals are not far behind, the last refuge of political function as opposed to dysfunction is mayors. That's why we're glad to have here today also Mayor Madeline Rogero of Knoxville, Tennessee. Madeline, would you please stand? Mayor? We have here, I don't know if she's here yet, but we have Mayor Paula Hicks Hudson from Toledo. Is she here? Mayor? Mayor Nancy Vaughn of Greensboro actually was in Pittsburgh for about an hour and then had a state legislative crisis. Like I said, there's partisanship too much in the state legislature, and she had to go out and put a big fire out. But to show her dedication, she actually came to Pittsburgh and then flew right back to Greensboro. And we also, of course, have two other mayors we're about to introduce. Here's our framework real quick. We look at cities from the framework of a word called city, the connected city. How do you connect your physical and human and social capital? The innovative city. How do you create a culture and an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship? The talented city. How do you develop, educate, retain, attract, deploy, and employ talent? And fourth, what are your distinctive assets? What your distinctive DNA? What's your competitive advantage? And then we have three common threads that are integrated throughout the entire framework. In other words, they're not separate from any of these things. One of which is what we'll be talking about today. I'm sorry, I had showed the wrong one. Those are the three in the middle. Economic inclusion affects everything. It's not something separate. It's not a separate practice. It deals with everything else that we do. Collective impact. The idea of cross-sector, the cross-sector collaboration is absolutely key to what we do. Our name is sometimes misleading. It sounds like we're a group of business CEOs, but as you look at this room, we're far from it. We are doers and change makers for cities from all the different sectors at all level, regardless of rank or title, and measurable progress, which is why we've developed the concept of both city dividends and city vitals. And so our organizing platform is our research of city vitals, the concept of city dividends, which I'll explain in a minute, Our organizing platform, City Clusters, cross-sector teams of leaders from the city who join as a team, and our City Dividend Prize challenges like the recent very successful $1 million Talent Dividend Prize Challenge, and we're working on another one that's very exciting that we'll be announcing in the near future. All of you probably by now have seen a copy of this, City Vitals 3.0, 30 different indicators of your city's success. We all know that there is no secret sauce, and these are not the only 30 indicators, but with the help of Dean Ned Hill at the Levin College of Urban Affairs and his research team, we put together this, and we think it's very helpful handbook and tool for you to look at your city in at least 30 different ways. We also do city dividends premised on the notion that just a little move of the needle can have a big economic impact. I'll give you just 3 examples. If you were to increase the educational attainment of cities and metro regions, not by 10% or 5% or 1%, but just, or by 2%, but just by 1%, the number of 2-year and 4-year degrees achieved, it has a huge economic impact on the per capita income of your city and your region. If you were to reduce the number of miles driven in your city by just 1 mile per person a day over the course of a year, a huge impact on the economic savings of money not ordinarily spent on buying cars, repairing cars, filling them up with gas, and promoting walkability and bikeability, and the most important issue probably facing our world today, reducing poverty. If anybody says to you we're going to alleviate, or we're going to, I should say, solve the poverty issue, you won't believe them. But every citizen would believe you or your mayor if they said we're going to reduce poverty in our city by 1%. And that's an achievable goal that would have a huge economic savings in our country on money that's ordinarily spent on state and federal anti-poverty programs. We have developed a unique resource library that we're announcing today. Most of you don't know about it, and we'll be sending out more emails after this conference. But some of you have heard of Pinterest. We've taken Pinterest to a whole new level, and we have created a visual resource library with more than 200 boards on different issues. This is just one of 200 boards. This particular one has 510 resources on the subject of economic opportunity inclusion. Articles, reports, books, infographics, photos, and we have those, and we'll be sending out an email to you, so almost on every possible subject you can think of, from transit-oriented development to bikeability to a variety of issues. My guess is you'll find more than one board of interest to you, including, by the way, boards on all the cities that have city clusters. More about that after the conference. The next thing I want to do is introduce to you, if I can move back, okay, thank you. I want to introduce to you now the mayor of Dayton. Nan Whaley is a longtime friend of mine, and when she was elected mayor of Dayton, Dayton got excited. Something very similar, as you know, happened right here in Pittsburgh not long ago when you got a new mayor. And these two new mayors have gotten to know each other and become friends, and so I thought it would be very appropriate to ask my very good friend, the mayor of Dayton, Ohio, to introduce her very good friend, our host, the mayor of Pittsburgh. So now, without further ado, the mayor of Dayton, Ohio, Nan Whaley. Go to it.
Well, good morning. It's great to be in Pittsburgh. Mayor Peduto knows this is my very first trip to Pittsburgh, and I'm super excited to be here. I got to walk around the city a bit last night, stood out and watched everybody watching the Pirates game, and really just already has fallen in love with your city, Mayor. I am very pleased to be here, and for you all to know, 2 weeks ago, Mayor Peduto was actually in Dayton for our bike summit and for a discussion on sustainability. And I went around introducing him all day in Dayton, and I did such a nice job. Lee said if I could come to Pittsburgh and introduce Mayor Peduto in Pittsburgh, I could do that as well, and it's really a pleasure. In Dayton, I think we have many of the same opportunities that other cities across the Midwest have, and Pittsburgh has been leading the way on those efforts of transforming and innovating its city. Mayor Peduto and I were elected on the same, we're sworn in on the same day. On January 6th, it was the coldest day in Pittsburgh. It was the coldest day in Dayton. We say it's the day that most of our opponents thought hell froze over when we were elected. And we really hit it off when we went to Harvard for mayor's school, really sharing some of the ideas we had for our cities and opportunities for our cities, and check in regularly to see for advice. I definitely call Mayor Peduto for advice and counsel, and so I think that's one of the special things about being a mayor is you get the opportunity to meet other great leaders trying to do their very best for their community, and we like to share and steal ideas happily. So it is great to be in your city, Mayor. I'm so excited to be here and so pleased to see you again. Please give a warm welcome to my dear friend, Mayor Bill Peduto.
Oh, good morning, everybody. So, first off, Nan, thank you. She's right. You know, it's such a great opportunity. When we got elected, there were 45 new mayors that came in, and I mean from large cities, New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, Boston, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Charlotte, Miami, all throughout this country. And between Nan and lovely Warren in Rochester, New York, and Betsy Hodges in Minneapolis, and Bill de Blasio in New York, and the mayors of San Antonio and Oakland, California, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, there's a network of shared ideas, of shared values, and actually of shared political history of trying to get to the job as well. And you know, there have been a couple articles written about this and how there's this really true progressive movement that's coming from the grassroots level, and it's also tuned into a populist movement because it's what people want to see, and it's happening in cities across this country. Nan is a kindred spirit. She's a speck of blue in a sea of red that is able to negotiate and get things done and be able to do it in a way that stays true to her values, but also allows everyone to think that they're a part of the ride. And that's a really difficult thing to do. And if you look at what's happening in state capitals and in Washington, it's the opposite. So thank you, my friend. Welcome to Pittsburgh. Lee, thank you for bringing this here. And Lee, thank you for bringing this here. And to our Pittsburgh cluster and the folks that worked on putting this together and bringing Pittsburgh back into the CEO's family, thank you. This is something, we were one of the original cities back in the day, and we were very organized and had the largest cluster, and then we sort of fell off the map. And we're back. And it's so wonderful to be able to speak and stand here and welcome you and look out the window and see my city in the background. Because the initiatives that are being done by CEO cities and what's happening and the issues that were brought up are exactly the things that we're trying to promote in Pittsburgh. So let me give you one example, because we're talking about innovation, we're talking about inclusion. I want to talk about partnerships, because you're not going to be able to do it alone. And you can try, and you're going to fail. And you have to build up a coalition in order to be able to get it done. So those of you who know Pittsburgh know a little bit about our history. 18th century, we were the western frontier. Right down the river at that point was as far as the New World went. People weren't journeying down to Ohio yet. They called this the Gateway, and it was Fort Duquesne by the French and then Fort Pitt by the British. And by the 19th century, we started building stuff. First it was glass, and then it was iron, and then it was steel and aluminum. And by the end of the 19th century, we were building America. And if 20th century is going to be known as America's century, then Pittsburgh was its heart. By 1945, we were producing more steel than Germany and Japan combined. This entire area became the economic heart of the entire country, building every bridge and every skyscraper. And then in 1979, it all changed. I often like to say, and I'll say it again when I'm saying goodbye, the Pirates won the World Series, the Steelers won the Super Bowl, and Pittsburgh died. We really did. We went through 30 years of trying to re-identify who we would be and what we would be. And to be honest with you, not many people gave us much of a chance. They thought that cities like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Detroit, Buffalo, their days had passed. But we, over the course of 30 years, were able to prove different. A lot of partnerships, I'll talk about that tomorrow, but there's a lot of challenges because we still have the 19th century infrastructure in place. The road structure of a double grid system in a downtown is not much different than when horses and buggies were driving on those streets. We're challenged in this transformation, and probably part of it comes about when you start looking at building a new economy, when you start looking at environmental challenges, when you start looking at how you're able to work around these types of hurdles. Collaboration and transformation takes many forms. Early in our administration, we reached out to partner with our foundation community. They were the ones that held our head above the water during the 80s and the 90s when this city and this region went through a depression, not a recession, a depression. I mean, we, during that collapse, lost more people than New Orleans lost after Katrina, had a higher debt ratio than New York City had when it went bankrupt, and had almost double the unemployment that Detroit has today. And we had to figure out a way to survive, but we did more than that. We worked with our foundation community, and when we came in, we created a new model that would bring in the best talent to run this city, not decided by who put up the most yard signs or who raised the most money, but we opened it up to people around the country and around the world, and we brought in a whole new team to run every department. Every director and assistant director went through a process called Talent City. We've created one of the largest open data portals, and not just with the city, but with the county, and not just with the city and the county, but with the universities, to be able to create an open data system that's ready for the version 2.0. And recently we held our first global summit in Pittsburgh, an annual event called P4, that works under the principles that all future development will be based upon people, planet, performance, and placemaking. We partnered with our institutions. In Pitt, the University of Pittsburgh, we're working on creating the largest off-grid system of 5 different networked energy systems and building it all the way from downtown all the way into our university area, and looking at how we can do so to create a model of how cities can be transformed by not having to rely upon power plants hundreds of miles away, but what we can do locally to be able to do it. And we've done it with Carnegie Mellon University, and that's the example I want to highlight today. You know, there's 36 universities right around this city, and the partnership of those universities is critical in thinking about how cities can operate in the future. That's the partnership, the urban laboratory. What do we have to offer them? We have the opportunity to create an urban lab, to be able to test the research that they're doing in real time, to be able to create that research into product, and to be able to create an economy around it. What do they offer to us? A research and development arm of city government that we've never had before. We're the only city in the United States with a formal, structured memorandum of understanding with the university across all sectors. What that means is that we are now in a binding agreement with Carnegie Mellon to be able to open up our public areas. And it's not just about the technology or the software, it's across all the different sectors that are up here that allow us to have some true ability to get their research into the market and to be able to lessen the cost to taxpayers while also advancing the ability for this city. Urban data analytics, Metro 21, this is just one of the areas that this has benefited Pittsburgh right now. Last month we were invited to the White House to talk about this with city leaders, foundation leaders, university leaders from around the country. What the goal is to create this network that we have in the city, and then to network it with cities across the United States, where cities and universities are working together, where that shared information is being utilized, and where we take what the technology advantages have been and basically put them on steroids. Working with CMU's Metro 21 program, we're able to institute new programs using smartphones, social media, sensory data, and machine learning to provide new insights and make knowledge-based decision making. We're also working to provide predictive analytics software that studies our 311 call system, so that we're not only taking the calls to complain, but understanding where those calls are coming from and trying to get ahead of it before receiving additional. And to provide support for the city's operation decisions based on those predicted call clusters. The city and university partnership extends into new industries, a new economy for a former old steel town. Pittsburgh is becoming a world leader in smart transportation. Both Google and Uber are working with CMU on autonomous vehicles, and in fact, when you walk out the door, you may see one. They're on the streets right here in this area of the city being tested right now. We're adapting the traffic flow of our bike users, pedestrians, cars, disabled residents into our smart traffic signalization system. And Pittsburgh has seen the single largest increase in everyday cycling in the nation over the past decade. Over the past 10 years, we have increased the number of people who are using bikes to commute to work by 400%. And now we're building out the infrastructure to see that grow even further. Last week we launched our bike share program, and last year we opened our first protected bike lanes. It took us 6 months in office to be able to get that done. And we're still getting a heck of a lot of bike lash over it. Intelligent traffic signals is doing more than the ideas of detection loops or left-hand turn lanes or anything that, you know, I say are about as advanced as Betamax and VHS tapes. What CMU has been able to do with us is to create a system of sensors throughout an entire area of the city that that are able to tell exactly where the traffic is and how far it queues back. And then through different programs to be able to change all of the traffic signals to be able to get the traffic to move better. It's not something in the future. It's on the streets right now in Pittsburgh, and it's being used. We would never have been able to do this, but because our foundations supported it, CMU created it, we put it into our public areas. What has it done? The travel times in the targeted areas are down 24%. Idling is down 40%. And emissions are down 21%. When you start to talk about inclusionary, it's not simply on the product itself. It's about the different parts of it that are a part of the Pittsburgh and part of any city. It's the air that people are breathing. If you look at the most congested areas, they happen in areas that are, for the most part, either lower income or areas that are underserved. And in those areas with diesel emissions, the air quality is also bad. We also track that to see what it's actually happening through real sensors that have been placed on poles to be able to detect particulate matter in that area. City vehicles are being mounted with smartphones. Literally, just getting your iPhone and putting it on the back of a bumper and being able to detect the road conditions and then being able to look at it, and if it's spidering or if it's a single, knowing that it's either a sewer line that's collapsing or it's the condition of that road. And it's being used to be able to do the inspections that used to be done by eyeball or worse, by politics. Not the condition of the road, but who lives on that road. And being able to provide that real data so people don't have to try to assume which street's going to be paved, like somebody's trying to figure out who's going to play in the BCS championship, but you actually are able to see it on a real data analysis. Our collaboration with CMU will enable us to go beyond static routes to dynamic routes for things like snow plowing. You know, cities have adopted a snow plow tracker system. Next year, we'll be able to know not only where the snow plows were, but whether the salt spreader was spinning or if the plow was up or down. Open, transparent operations that benefit the public, like the real snow plow tracker operations, also benefit city supervisors because now they're able to see not only where the people are, but whether the services are being delivered. Next month, we'll launch what we're calling our Innovation Roadmap. And it basically pulls together all of the different initiatives that the city is proposing, and it puts it into one roadmap of where we need to go and benchmarking it to make sure that we're getting there. All this is more than technology. It's about the quality of life. It's about people. It's working with partners across Pittsburgh. We are being strategic framework to work together to address all of our city's challenges. This will ensure that inclusion is not a side issue of it, but it's actually part of the DNA, as Lee was saying. It has to be a part of the entire program for it to be successful. Otherwise, it won't be something that will be equitable. It will only be something that's efficient and effective. So from that western frontier, back in the 18th century, to the industrial giant, from the collapse and now the rebirth, our transformation continues. We hope that your city can one day soon benefit from the lessons we're learning, and that together we can help to make all of our cities the places that they truly can be. It's an honor for me to welcome you to Pittsburgh, to be able to share a little bit of how we're working with new partners, with our foundations, with our nonprofits, with our universities, to be able to get us to where we know that next part of Pittsburgh would be. And instead of boring you with a big, long proclamation, I'll get to the chase. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, William Peduto, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, congratulate CEOs for cities for bringing over 200 influential leaders from cities across the United States to Pittsburgh, and do hereby declare June 10th, 2015, CEOs for Cities 2015 Pittsburgh Workshop Day here in our most livable city of Pittsburgh. Enjoy your time here, guys.